Hello, everybody. Welcome and Jeremy Plonk from First Bet. Tackle 5 topics each week. We've got hot topics, Jeff, and getting hotter. We've got our first 50-point prep this weekend in the Risen Star, and a lot of good races to review this week.
Yeah, it's good. It's busy. It's good. It was busy last week. It's going to be really busy coming up as well. We'll look ahead to a couple of really important 3-year-old races next weekend. But looking back, and who knows? I mean, this Derby class changes every week. We find horses that fall by the wayside. We pick up new shooters, and I will say this though: you were spot on last week, Jeremy, with your 3-year-old analysis. So. I usually listen pretty closely. I'm going to listen even closer again because you are hot as a firecracker right now.
Well, every once in a while, a squirrel finds a nut, as they say, right? The blind squirrel. I've got to go for an eye exam tomorrow, so I will attest to the blind squirrel part of the equation at least. Our first topic this week, we're talking television, a hit show at Aqueduct in the Withers Stakes. He earned the Primetime Emmy with this performance. Let's go back and take a look at it with Chris Griffith on the mic for Hit Show's win in the Withers.
Arctic Arrogance has got more. They reached the top of the stretch, and now Hit Show is out in the clear. It's Arctic Arrogance who's got the lead, but Hit Show is ready to pounce on the outside as they approach a final furlong. They are 5 clear here from General Banker, and Hit Show has taken the lead. It's Hit Show who's now striding away. Arctic Arrogance is a game second. Hit Show drops over to the rail, has less than a 16th to go. It's Brad Cox, Manny Franco, Hit Show in the Withers.
For Brad Cox, that's his 4th major win on the Triple Crown Trail, going back since December 26th in the stakes ranks. He's had many maiden special and allowance type winners as well. Hit Show might be as effective as any of them going long because of his come from behind style. What did you make of the Withers, Jeff?
Well, that was a very testing racetrack. They ran a 1 1/8 in 154 and 3, and that's about 6 seconds, but like 30 lengths slower than you probably will see what the Wood Memorial will be running. And so you have to be a dead fit 3-year-old this time of the year to handle that deep and taxing track. It was called fast, but it was as slow as you could possibly be.
Right.
So we know one thing about Hit Show. There's going to be no issue at 1 1/4. And he's only had now 4 starts, 3 wins, and a 4th in an allowance race at Churchill. But the way he's progressing, and obviously with the connections and being by Candy Ride and out of a mare by Tappet, and numbers-wise, this is what I found out that was impressive to me in addition to everything else. You like to see 3-year-olds improve by each race. His Beyer numbers have gone from 60 to 71 to 82 to 91. So every time he improves, he improves about 10 points, and he's still got some improvement left to do. I know you liked him a lot in this race, Jeremy. He was knocked down to 6 to 5, so you weren't alone. But I have to give him high marks for this performance. As for Arctic Arrogance, he ran his heart out. He probably doesn't want to run much farther than he did, and the dead tiring track didn't help either. But Hit Show has got credentials now to be a very, very serious player in this division.
It wasn't a lot behind him. We get that. Young Frau came north for Bill Mott out of the maiden ranks to see how maybe that would, match up. That horse didn't really come with any effort whatsoever. So there wasn't much behind Hit Show in here, but he did it the right way. This is what you want to see. He's won with and without Lasix at this point. He's won 7 furlongs on a fast track at Keeneland. He's won at 1 1/8 on a very slow track at Aqueduct. So those are the positives about it. For Brad Cox, he's one of just 38 Triple Crown nominees, though, Jeff, which is interesting. There are 369 Triple Crown nominees overall. Brad Cox has 10.3% of them. Just the Cox Derby could line up a gate of 20. We're obviously not going to get that, but he could be in that Nick Zito range of throwing a 5-bagger at us come Kentucky Derby Day if the season keeps going as it has to this point for Brad Cox. But Hit Show's right up there with some of his better ones. He also has Instant Coffee. And what I like about both of those two is they're both come from behind horses. And typically with a trainer like Brad Cox and Bob Baffert and these top guys, it's about speed with them. When they have a horse who can actually come off the pace, that's where I start to get a little bit excited, because those horses aren't going to be just, wrapped up in a duel and maybe, find distance too long for them. I think both Instant Coffee and Hit Show are kind of interesting horses as we think about 1 1/4. And really, we're not that far out right now.
No, as a matter of fact, Hit Show may have only one more race before the Derby. We think of the Derby as being a little bit down the road. It really isn't, as you pointed out. Many of these horses have maybe 2 preps, maybe even just one left. And Hit Show's final prep, one would think, and this is, I think, what the trainer has already kind of confirmed, is that it probably will be the Wood Memorial. We obviously know he knows he likes the track, and it's February 11th, but when you've run 1 mile and 1/8 and won a graded stakes as he already has this early, there's really not much more you need to do with him. Just keep him happy, maybe train him up to the Wood Memorial, maybe not have him 100% wound up, but tight enough to win, and then really peak on the first Saturday in May. So where Brad Cox is now sitting with Hit Show, you couldn't be in a better spot. And especially since he'll handle the distance. He's got the pedigree to be any kind of horse. And we'll just have to see if Gary and Mary West can get a little lucky this time and maybe win it and keep the trophy this time if they do win it. So we'll see what happens with Hit Show, but I am very, very impressed.
You had to rub the maximum security in again. It just keeps coming back every once in a while.
Bringing back
one thing about this race, this race was really slow, right? We know that part to due to the track condition. 41 and change for the last 3 furlongs, very slow. We get that. But this track was very slow for this race last year when early voting won. He went on to win a Preakness Stakes and was plenty brilliant on a fast track at Pimlico in a race where speed is flattered. So don't think just because of what you saw on the timer, the come home times, like you might compare with a lot of races and preps. I don't think we really want to make that kind of comparison this year because I think it's a similar track to what last year when early voting was effective over. Let's go to our second topic this week on the big board from the Primetime Emmy. Well, the jury is still out for what we saw in the Sam F. Davis Stakes at Tampa Bay Downs on the weekend. Litigate was the winner. Let's go back and take a listen with Jason Beam on the mic.
Zydeco still the leader to the top of the lane. On the outside, Litigate right up alongside. Groveland is just in behind. Classic Legacy continues to make up ground on the outside. As Litigate comes up alongside of Zydeco, Litigate goes to the front. Zydeco back to second. Classic Legacy on the outside. Groveland up the rail. A final 16th to go. And Litigate's in front. It's Litigate with 50 yards left to go. Zydeco down on the rail. Groveland, Litigate still there. Groveland with one final surge. And Litigate going to go on to win it here.
Like he was going to blow by at the top of the stretch. He got to the leaders by the quarter pole. Looked like he would draw off, but he really didn't. 4 horses finished within 3 lengths of him at the wire behind him. I liked him going into the race. Coming out of it, I'm like, I don't know. Is he going to be better horses than these? There's still some questions. That's why the jury is still out.
Yeah, he won. He worked out a really good trip, which is to his credit. I like horses in big fields that are able to get where they need to be early on, and he did that. Yeah. And he sat outside. But again, you get a situation where they're all kind of finishing in a heap at the end. And if Litigate had drawn off with authority, won this race by 4 or 5 lengths, you could say, well, I don't think he beat a whole lot, but at least he looked good doing it. But he didn't really look that good doing it. I mean, the buyer number of 77 is not going to win any derbies, at least nothing on the first Saturday in May. It's hard to say. I mean, I kind of caught a quote from Luis Saez about how the colt was magnificent in victory. Well, not exactly a tough crowd if that's the case, but he did win it. And probably you would think that he would come back and try to win the the Tampa Bay Derby. But if you look at the also-rans in this race, Jeremy, I'm not seeing anything that would necessarily promote the race other than maybe WHNL, who just didn't run. I mean, for whatever reason, he just and his form was okay going in. Even he was a tad suspect, but he should have run a lot better. But I'm not going to take anything out of this race. I mean, if Litigate's going to be a serious Kentucky Derby contender, he's going to have to improve his buyer numbers by 20 to 25 points. And while he certainly has a right to improve, and I love his pedigree, even by Blame and Out of Him Air by Mineshaft, he's got the pedigree to go on, and he's only had 3 starts. Who's to say he won't improve? I just want to see it before I jump on his bandwagon.
And I would almost certainly feel that it'll come in the Tampa Bay Derby. A couple reasons for that. Todd Pletcher's won the Sam F. Davis 6 times in the past. 5 of those horses came back to run in the Tampa Bay Derby. Only Rule switched over and ran in the Florida Derby. And the other point is Pletcher's got 2 other really good Triple Crown hopes right now. He's got Forte going in the Fountain of Youth and then potentially the Bluegrass after that as his announced plan already. And then Tappet Trice, you would have to think is staying home for the Florida Derby, who was so impressive in winning a mile allowance race there at Gulfstream Park. So if you've kind of got the Gulfstream path figured out already, then you would think you come back either in the Florida Derby or to the Wood Memorial, a race where Pletcher really supports that. This horse, I don't think, wants to lay off from now to the Wood Memorial. So I think the Tampa Bay Derby probably comes back as the right race for him. So I would expect, with the history of Pletcher's winners of the Davis coming back in the Tampa Bay Derby, that's where we will see Litigate next, and we'll see how he turns out. As for WHNL, bumped around a little bit into the first turn. That's going to be the excuse. But literally a half beat or two after that bumping, he was in the clear, had a chance to do all the running the rest of the way, and did none of it. I'm going to assume this horse, because if you look at his running lines, he ran the 2 best races of his life on a sloppy track. I think he kind of got moved up by the sloppy track as a 2-year-old. That's what I'm going to assume for now. Danny Gargan's got to kind of recalibrate and decide what they're going to do. But I would bet running that poorly over the track at Tampa will not get a return engagement. WHNL is going to run in another Derby prep if healthy, but the Tampa Bay Derby is probably not going to be it when you run that poorly as a favorite in the prep for the Tampa Bay Derby. I think they'll try to find some different footing. Let's go to our third topic this week on It's Official, our Triple Crown tracker. We're already tracking some Triple Crown news with the big preps over the past weekend, but we've got a little more to talk about on the Triple Crown Trail, Jeff, not in the afternoon, but in the morning. Cave Rock was out for his first workout. The big 2-year-old from California last year. He was out for his first workout as a 3-year-old, the son of Arrogate, working here on Monday at Santa Anita.
And he looks good. He's on the outside at 47-4, as slow as he could be held. Really looking good. I mean, you can't look much better than this. That horse that is on the inside, he broke off in front. They weren't really a team. It's just that Baffert's Colt caught up to him. And this is all you really wanted to see from him first work back. But the way he handled that half mile, he could go 5/8 and 59 in his next work, which would probably be next Monday, I would think. And then be not on top of a race, but reasonably close, maybe 2-3 weeks away if Bob wanted to do it. The question, though, is who is going to be saddling him? Because there is a rule out that Churchill Downs has passed that says on any horse that Bob Baffert is still training as of February 28th will not be eligible to earn any Derby points, even if he's transferred after that. He's got to be out of that barn in 2 weeks. And there's a lot of 3-year-olds that have designs on the Derby that Bob still has. And I'm just curious as to see what movement we're going to see and how that's going to work out. And it's going to happen before the first of the month. And who knows who's going to be actually training, at least on the paper anyway, what Cave Rock's going to be doing in 2-3 weeks from now.
Yeah, we've got our ear to the old telegram, if you will, waiting to hear from the courts in Kentucky because, they were in court last week making arguments, trying to get a hold on the suspension. The approach from the attorneys were to attack the judge and the judge's credibility. The judge didn't like that and snapped it back. So some interesting doings in the robes and gavels as we cover this year's Road to the Triple Crown. And we'll see how the judge rules in Kentucky to see if there is any kind of reprieve for Baffert at all. If not, like you said, it's everybody must go by the 28th, 2 weeks from today, to be eligible for the Derby. Interesting to see. If you can get Cave Rock back to the races, if you're looking something late March, there's still maybe a chance for the Rebel. The Rebel Arkansas Derby path would still be there. He's welcome at Oaklawn Park, obviously. That's, still a possibility if they want to go that route with Cave Rock, depending who may be training and who may be trying to accrue some of those Kentucky Derby points. I guess you could, take the approach of let's see, let's see what the court does over the next 2 weeks. And then on that 28th, they're going to have to make an 11th hour decision with Cave Rock. Let's talk about what's going on the track this week on our Triple Crown tracker. We've got the Risen Star Stakes coming up Saturday at Fairgrounds. It's the first 50-point prep in the qualifiers for the Kentucky Derby. Of course, the prep race here for the Louisiana Derby. And last year's Risen Star was a big race. It produced the 2-3 finishers in the Kentucky Derby, Jeff. Epicenter and Zandon both came out of this race last year. We've got a field of 14 that have already entered. They entered early for the Risen Star Stakes, and give you a chance to look at this field of 14. Some important names in here, some horses that have already run well on the trail, and then some horses who are going to be stepping up in class. One of those being Harlow Cap, and that was the former Baffert trainee. And as we're talking here, Jeff, he has been transferred to Steve Asmussen.
He has. This is a colt that ran out here at Santa Anita. He's the first portal transfer, I guess you could say, going from Baffert to Steve Asmussen, and where he, I'm sure, will remain at least as long as he is a viable Kentucky Derby candidate looking for points. Now, he's only had 3 starts. He did break his maiden. He's a justified colt. They gave $400,000 for him in the Timonium 2-year-old in training sale. His numbers are rising with every start. He is, at this stage anyway, a legitimate prospect and will earn himself into the conversation if he can win this Grade 2 event. But he looked the part when he broke his maiden here for Baffert back in the 3rd week of January, and his connections are not waiting around. They've already taken the preemptive move of moving him to Steve Asmussen. He's drawn well in this race in the 5-hole, and I would think that if he builds on the maiden win that he had here at Santa Anita, that he would have a legitimate chance to win this race.
Let's take a look at that aforementioned maiden win with Frank Miramati.
It's been easy going so far for Harlow Cap. Yellow Brick takes up the chase now. He's 3 behind as they come to the 8th pole. And Harlow Cap, showing no signs of slowing down, maintains a comfortable 3-length edge. Yellow Brick second by a block. Text the legend. Tiz Talk. Between them, Navy Man are all battling for 3rd. Harlow Cap, dominant in victory. Wins it by 4.5.
So in this Risen Star, we've got a big field. We've got 2 fills runner-up in the Lecomte. The Lecomte winner is going to sit this one out and await the Louisiana Derby, that being Instant Coffee for Brad Cox. Cox, though, fear not, he's got 3 in here anyway. Angel of Empire, Tappett's Conquest, and Victory Formation. Victory Formation, probably the most reputed of those 3, but for post 13, that'll do him no favors. 1 mile and an 1/8 for the Risen Star Stakes. A long way to go this time of year, just like the Withers on Saturday at Aqueduct. Let's continue our talk on this Triple Crown tracker, Jeff, because on Saturday at Fairgrounds, just before they run the Risen Star Stakes, the talented filly is back, and we're going to see here what Hoosier Filly has to have in her 3-year-old return. She was very good last year as a 2-year-old, winning the Goldenrod at Churchill. Let's take a look at her win at Churchill Downs, and I want to get your thoughts on her return in the Rachel Alexandra.
Hoosier Filly by the 8th pole by 4 now. Pure Pauline, knock your socks off. Pretty Mischievous, Defining Purpose. Hoosier Filly with a 5-length lead, 100 yards to go. It's another flawless performance. Hoosier Filly, they're thinking first Friday in May now. Under the wire, wrapped up by 6.
That's the way you want to win, wrapped up, Jeff. She'll get a little bit of competition, I think, in the race at Fairgrounds, but there's not going to be a lot of horses willing to take her on in Philly, so not a huge field for the Rachel Alexandra. She's going to be tough in there, and with a win, they're already Triple Crown nominated, so they're thinking about maybe the first Saturday in May as well.
I think they are. And, of course, she will not have any points unless she tackles the boys somewhere before then. And I think what Tom Amos is doing here, and then she's obviously fit enough to run well, although if you look at the work pattern, she has only had 3 works since that race, which was in late November. But they've been bullet works, so she's obviously hasn't lost a step. The question is, how fit is she? I don't think they would be running. I don't think Tom would run her unless he was pretty convinced that she was, ready to roll. And from the 2 holes, she can probably be wherever she wants. And I know that everybody's going to look at this race and say, okay, let's compare this race with the boys and how does she fit? We just saw in the Goldenrod earned an 81 Beyer number, but she never was asked to run a drop. I mean, she just was galloping along there, finished under wraps. She could be a spectacular filly, maybe better than we even think that she's going to be, even though she wasn't the champ last year because she did run in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. Who's to say she wasn't the best of the lot? And Who's Your Filly, being by Into Mischief and Out of a Mare by Tappet, doesn't have to take a backseat to any horse based on that pedigree. I am really interested to see what she does here, because if she wins with the kind of authority that I'm expecting, then Tom's going to have to make a choice. He's going to have to set out a plan if he wants to run her in the Kentucky Derby. And it's always good to have a filly in there. It's something that we can talk about, but she just might really be extraordinary.
Well, you're not the only one impressed by her, because if you look at the closing odds for the Kentucky Derby Future Wager Pool 4, which closed on Sunday, she's the second individual choice at 11-1, Jeff, behind only Forte. Now, Baffert is included with all the other 3-year-olds, and a 2-1 price isn't that bad of a price on that all others this time of year. And given that the Bafferts are all lumped in that group, but Who's Your Filly at 11-1? That's probably a shorter price than anybody should be realistically taking. But a filly does get hammered, in the Derby if they're, of high repute. So she will get bet on Derby Day. And, there's a lot of sentimentality for that. So 11-1 might look good on the first Saturday in May, but there's a lot of chips that got to fall before you take 11-1 on her at this point. Tappet Trice off that big allowance win is the 4th choice. Instant Coffee, the Lecomte winner. Victory Formation, who goes this weekend, right up in that mix as well. Go Rocket Ride, I thought was interesting. The Richard Mandela maiden winner at 6 furlongs, 25-1. Your take on that, Jeff?
Well, he's a good colt. I mean, he's only had the one start, and I don't know how far he wants to run. I tell you what, 28-1 on Hit Show. I think you probably could do worse than that, because he's one race away from ensuring that he's going to be in the field. It'd be hard for me to imagine him not running well in the Wood, and then because you got to get him in the field, and then. If you're not in the field, you can't win. So some of these are still, like, for example, Go Rocket Ride, as good as he is, and trust me, he's good. He's just kind of made in the sprint race. He's not close to getting into that field yet. But if Who's Your Filly were to win as expected, and then Tom Amoss is going to make it to, he's going to have to say at that stage, we're looking for the Derby, and this is the path we'll take, or we're going to look at one of these 3 races. I could see him, I should say, getting a tremendous lot of support the next time they offer this. And maybe if you got 11-1, you could do worse for it. I'm over the moon with her ability, and but whether or not she's going to be be able to go about a quarter against the heat that she's going to see, that's the question. But I mean, to me, as far as the 3-year-old fillies are concerned, especially what we saw last week at Tampa Bay, to me, she is a head and shoulders ahead of the class at this stage anyway.
If I had to make a recommendation, nobody's listening to me, but one of the owners for Who's Your Filly does email me. She's a very nice lady. I would say Wood Memorial. It's going to be the easiest of the 1 1/8 prep races traditionally, has just as many points as the others. And I don't think you're going to get the heavies in there. So I would look at Wood Memorial potentially if you're going to take on the boys just once before the Kentucky Derby or the Kentucky Oaks. As for the future wager, a couple overlays I want to throw out there. Verifying at 34-1, I think is a very nice price. Steve Asmussen's got 2 in here that I think are completely overlooked at this point. But by April, you might be saying, hey, these horses are top 5 choices on the tote board. Red Route 1 is 58-1, coming off a very good race last time out in the Southwest. And a horse named First Defender. Keep this one in mind. First Defender, 91-1 right now for Asmussen. Was impressive as any horse at the fairgrounds. In the maiden ranks. This horse is going to be a major stakes player. Maybe he goes the Arkansas Derby route. We'll see where Steve breaks his horses up. But I think First Defender is the goods, and he's 91-1 in that pool. So, we'll see if anybody's invested in that one already, see if it's a good investment or not in the coming weeks. Let's go to
Jeremy, I want to jump in.
Go ahead. Sure.
I want to jump in real quick and make you talk about a recommendation.
Yes, please do.
I'll offer one too, okay? And that is for Who's Your Filly. What I would do with her is I'd run her against the Colts in her next start. That and get and find an easy race. Get enough points that'll assure you that you can get in the field. You get 50, you're probably going to be in it. And then, and then don't subject her to a gut-wrenching race in the final prep, because you'll already have the points anyway. And then finish it off with an easy run against the Phillies, maybe at Keeneland or somewhere, and then go into that race. Don't wait for the last, because if you can't win the next one, you're not going to run the Derby anyway. Might as well get that out of the way, and then prep in the whatever race you want before that, and then go against the Colts. So if I'm serious after this race of running in the Derby, next start, that's what you do it.
Yeah. And see how she comes out of the race, right? Is she one of those that bounces out of races, or does she need more time? That'll dictate probably where they go next. Fourth topic for us as we head next is what happens in Tampa stays in Tampa. Some horses run races over that track that just don't play out other places, and some quirky races that turn out to not be indicative of the talent of a particular horse. What do we make of the Suncoast Stakes as the champion returned last week? Wonder Wheel. She returned in defeat.
Wonder Wheel giving her cue now. Julia shining up on the outside, going to try to follow the favorite. Here's Wonder Wheel now coming up alongside of Dreaming of Snow. Julia shining on the outside. Those two trying to get to Dreaming of Snow, who's game toward the inside. Dreaming of Snow still just a narrow in front. Wonder Wheel right up alongside. Julia shining down the outside. Final 16th to go. Dreaming of Snow. Wonder Wheel has 70 yards to push on by. Dreaming of Snow digs in toward the inside. Wonder Wheel, one final surge. Dreaming of Snow. A shocking upset here in the Suncoast. Wonder Wheel, a good effort first off the layoff, and second, Julia Shining was third.
Two-star fillies in that race, and they were upset. It was the week of the 33rd anniversary of Buster Douglas taking down Mike Tyson. This wasn't quite that shocking, Jeff, but to have the 2-year-old filly champ and then the big filly from the Demoiselle both defeated in this race, it was quite surprising.
Well, I don't know, Buster, was he 38-1 to knock out Tyson? Because this really was 38-1 to win this race. It's pretty close,
Yeah, in the same ballpark.
Right. But Dreaming of Snow wins this race, and she does it on the lead. But they were behind. They were within range. I mean, she dug down deep. I didn't expect her to hold off and win. She did so with an 83 by her number, 10 points above her previous career top. So give her a little bit of credit for rising to the occasion. But, I mean, if you were brave enough to take 50 cents on the dollar on Wonder Wheel in this race in the straight pool, you probably thought you were going to win at the 8th pole. And she never got by, and she never was going to get by. That's the thing. And I thought she was fit enough to win. I mean, for Mark Casse, she had won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies to earn the Eclipse Award. Before that, she won the Grade 1 at Keeneland, also by 80. So that to me was shocking. You got to give the winner a little bit of credit, but still, you wonder about 2-year-old fillies turning 3 now. So many of them they mature early, they develop early, and then they don't go anywhere. They kind of like stay the same, they don't get better. Whereas the Colts generally make these quantum leaps as they grow up and they mature mentally and physically. Fillies usually don't make that leap. And I'm wondering whether or not Wonder Wheel is going to level out. You know what I'm saying? And not build on that performance. And I don't know. I maybe she didn't like the track. Maybe she was short. Maybe. You're supposed to go by when you're 50 cents on the dollar. So I question this race. And that's why I ask you, can you give her a little bit of a excuse because it was Tampa Bay, or is that just an old wives' tale?
Yeah, no, I don't think there's a whole lot to that. I don't think the results are that out of whack, and horses who are expected to do well come in there and generally do. But when they don't, everybody, can kind of jump on that factor. But, like you mentioned, the 2-year-olds turning 3 in the filly ranks don't always move forward. In fact, quite often they don't, more often than not. Silver Bullet Day in 1998 and 99 is the last champion 2-year-old filly to win the Kentucky Oaks. We're looking at, a long time there. And if you look at the list of champion 2-year-old fillies, the last one who was really good at 3, you got to go back to 2015 with Songbird. Echo Zulu was pretty good last year, won a couple grade 2 types, but went 0 for 2 in the grade 1 ranks. She was good. I mean, but she didn't make a big leap forward from 2 to 3. But the last one who did of the champions was Songbird, and that's 2015. So we're talking, 8 years ago now. So it's not often that we see a champion 2-year-old filly advance and become very good at 3. So I think that's more probably the tell with Wonder Wheel than the track, and how she handled Tampa Bay or not. So we'll, see in her next start. Mark Casse is known to start his good 2-year-olds turning 3 back at Tampa early in the year. He did it with a lot of his good turf fillies, and people are like, wow, he's starting early in the year with these, But I think this is a spot that made sense for her. She had every right from the top of the stretch home and just didn't quite punch it out. So I think we're looking for other 3-year-old fillies probably beyond her. And we'll talk about some of those over the next couple of weeks. And of course, we just saw, we were talking about the good filly for Tom Amos, Hoosier filly. I think she's the head of the class of this division. I don't care who got the Eclipse Award in January. Let's go to our 5th topic this week on It's Official, as it is each and every week, the stars of tomorrow. Maybe we'll have a 3-year-old filly to talk about in this segment. In fact, we do. But let's start off with the colt, and maybe one on the Kentucky Derby trail. His name is Skinner. You and I were talking about him at Del Mar last year after one start, thinking he might be a stakes kind of horse. He still hadn't broken his maiden until this past Sunday.
Yellow Brick confronted by Skinner, and Skinner on the outside runs right by at the 8th pole, very confidently ridden as he puts away Yellow Brick. They're followed by I Don't Get It on the outside, a 16th to go, and it's Skinner in a powerful effort. Skinner strides clear under Victor Espinoza to win by 3 emphatic lengths.
So Skinner, Jeff, your thoughts on his performance?
This was his first start since October 8th. When he was beaten 28 lengths in the American Pharoah as a maiden, and wasn't anywhere near up to that at that stage. But as a son of Curlin, given some time off the rest of the year, bringing him back now early in his 3-year-old season, trained to John Sheriffs, obviously had Skinner ready to win over a distance to ground off that layoff. And I thought visually it was a very pleasing performance. It wasn't, a 10 out of 10 on the Goosebump scale or anything like that, but it was still a nice progressive move for a colt that is bred to get better with age. And then the Beyer number came up, 95, and that really knocked me out because that's a speed figure, if it's accurate, that would win a lot of grade 2 events around the country for 3-year-olds this time of the year. And I'm sure that Sheriffs is going to be looking around whether or not he wants to stay in California now or ship around and try to find an easier spot. Because when you run in California, you're running against a minimum of 3 Bafferts in every stakes. Whether or not they're actually going to be Bafferts for the time that they run next time out, they're still going to be Baffert developed colts. And so Skinner's got and Sheriff's got some planning to do and see where he shows up. But being by Curlin, he's going to run all day and is already fast on numbers, if you believe the numbers. And I would say that if I owned him, I would be over the moon because now I think I've got a colt that who knows what he might be in 3 months down the road.
And Jeff, another horse we want to look at on our stars of tomorrow, a filly out of Beholder. You don't always get champion mares produce championship quality horses. This is the 3rd filly out of Beholder, 3rd runner out of Beholder to hit the racetrack. The previous 2 had 6 starts and just 1 3rd-place finish to show from them. But in this case, over the weekend, to the winner's circle for the first time, an offspring of Beholder, and her name was Tina Ella. Let's take a look back with Frank.
Tina Ella hugging the rail in 3rd, and Crimson Sonata now takes that 3rd spot on the outside. Irish Patsy and Carson Jenner next. Down at the rail, Irish Rose is 8 lengths off the speed, but making some serious headway now as Foolish takes the lead at the 8th pole. It's Foolish. Irish Rose having to alter course. In the meantime, Tina Ella is coming smartly after Foolish, and Tina Ella takes the lead. Irish Rose, late run from Make It Snow, the beautifully bred Tina Ella. Warfront out of Beholder. Pure class, and it's graduation time.
So where do we go from here? Beholder obviously was a star going long on the dirt. Tina Ella, a turf sprinter. Makes perfect sense, right?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing about Tina Ella. I'd watched her train before she ever ran, and she was training on the dirt, and she trained really well. But when you're training on the dirt and you're just kind of breezing along, sometimes they can fool you. They can look good, But when the first 2 starts on dirt, they showed speed. They were riding, spinning her wheels and wearing herself out on the dirt, on the pace, weakening late, looking nothing like Beholder. But this race was entirely different. Number one, it's grass, and she's by Warfront, so you figure she's going to move up on grass, which she did. But more importantly than that, when you're on grass, especially at Santa Anita, it's a much kinder surface than the dirt. The dirt, you got to really go through it. It's tough. And she was able to sit behind horses in hand, under wraps, into the bridle. And when she was asked to quicken at the upper stretch, she gave it to you. She would never have done that on the dirt. And it's a different style. You see this a lot with grass horses on the dirt here at Santa Anita. They'll show speed, they'll quit. Then you put them on the grass, you grab them, you take them back, you get them some cover, you let them on the last furlong, and they explode. And that's what happened to Tina Ella. I don't think she'll ever see the dirt again, and I definitely think she'll run long. So I think this is a good race. 9-2. They finished out in 23 and change. I think that's going to be a very productive race. That was a Neil Drysdale filly, a first-timer running second. That was all the rage. Irish Rose. Make It Snow was a first-timer as well. It was finishing well. This is going to be a productive race, but I do think Tina Ella, look, she doesn't have to go out and win the Kentucky Oaks or anything like that. If she can get any kind of black type, that'll be sufficient. Because this family is not just the Holder; it's Mendelssohn, it's a bunch of stakes horses,
right?
And she's fortunate if she can get some black type, and I think she will, but it's going to have to be on turf.
She's valuable as a mare as it is. She becomes way more valuable with some big black type on that. That's going to wrap up this week's edition of It's Official. We appreciate you tuning in on this Valentine's Day. Jeff is dressed appropriately. I didn't wear the proper color scheme for today. We will be back on Friday as we preview the weekend stakes races, our weekend stakes preview. Friday, Jeff, with Risen Star and all those big races. We got a big day at Laurel Park this weekend. The Maryland Jockey Club's got a couple big stakes. The Barbara Fritchie and the General George, 2 of their big sprint stakes this weekend. So big week of racing coming up.
It's a great week of racing. I was going over the races, the stakes that we'll be handicapping on Friday in our handicapping show and first call. And I think I've got about a legitimate 20 races to cut down to 8. So I'll see what the fields look like. Many of them have already been drawn, by the way. So Laurel's got a great card, Fairgrounds, and we'll dive in on Friday and try to get the best of the best. And very exciting weekend of racing coming up.
That's going to wrap up this edition of It's Official. On behalf of everybody with First Bet and Jeff Siegel, I'm Jeremy Plonk. We'll talk to you on Friday when we do First Call.